preparewithmojo50.com. That's preparewithmojo50.com. You can't have mine.
The Daily Mojo with Brad Staggs.
The point I worry about, and
is there a point in here somewhere? I was kind of hoping we get to one sooner or later. But
Hey, everybody, we're here.
You told me I have to do.
We are here. 2 minutes to showtime.
You threw out a hey.
Hey.
He said, hey.
That's rerun. No, how many people know rerun, right? Do you remember rerun?
Yep.
What was the name of that show?
Good times.
That's where he got his start, but I think he was on a different show too.
I'm sure there's a few of them. Boy, Could you imagine if they played those shows today?
Oh yeah.
What was that one where they're in the junkyard?
Oh, Sanford and Son.
I love that show.
And Archie's what's it? Archie Bunker. I don't remember. I forgot. All in the Family.
All in the Family.
They wouldn't be able to play those now. People
Are
would lose
you
lose their minds. Yeah.
Holy crap.
People would lose their mind.
What up, Linda? What up, girl?
Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker.
Yeah, Meathead. Remember?
Meathead. Oh, yeah. I kind of didn't like the dude even in the show.
Yeah.
He just had that thing about him that it's just like, I don't want to be friends with you.
He kind of have a thing. 1 minute. 1 minute to showtime.
What up, Roger Rabbit? What's going on, my brother? Come one, come all. And where's the hat? Where's the hat?
Did you bring it up?
Yes.
You did?
I swear I did.
Oh, maybe you didn't.
Okay, so I got to do the shout out.
Yeah.
What is wrong with me?
30 seconds.
I swear it was in my hand coming up the stairs of death for the 5th time.
I don't know, dude. I don't see it. I don't see it. All right, guys. We'll be right back with you. 20 seconds to showtime.
You will see that the world is inherently good. And don't ever let the world get you down. You just say, damn it, and move on. That's Damn It with Beaver, Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Mojo 50 Radio.
Journey into the matrix of the mind. Stretch your imagination and challenge reality. Abnormal realities are beacons for the imagination. What society deems abnormal may be more real than we think. This is Abnormal Realities with your hosts, Ron Phillips and Rocky Stucci.
You all right, brother? I just want to make sure you're okay before we kick it in
I'm
here.
good, dude. All I did was cough. That's all I did.
It felt a little violent over. I mean,
I had something in my throat.
Yeah,
there she did.
Thank you, girl. She's listening.
Yeah.
See, this is why I love her.
Yeah.
Well, folks, welcome. Thursday. It's Thursday edition.
Edition.
I'm going to say this really quick before I get to this, and then we jump right into our guests. I don't want to waste a lot of time. I have been on a mind trip on the last 4 shows. I'm just saying, for the record, deep, Brother Phillips.
Deep stuff. Oh, last night was phenomenal.
Yep. Yeah, you were.
And tonight has the makings of being exactly the same way.
I'm going to say about tonight, hold on to your belt straps because we're going to go down some rabbit holes. But before I do.
Yep. Got a shout out.
Yeah, our brother Landon. He is the state director, Landon Martin. He is the state director for Cast for Kids. Castforkids.org. Castforkids.org. This is an organization that does amazing things with special needs children, like take them fishing and do the things that normally they would not be able to do. And just like with the Miracle League, it's an amazing effort from human beings just being good people, and that's so attractive to me. It's a beautiful thing, and that's why me and Ron work with these organizations. So you guys get some time, just go check out their website. It's castforkids.org. And Brother Landon, for everything you do with all of the special needs community, our hats off to you right here on the program. We love you, brother, and we thank you for everything you do.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Guys, tonight's going to be a fantastic show. Our guest tonight is Mr. Mark Fiorentino. I know I posted out on Facebook today, but let me talk to you a little bit about what we're going to do tonight. Mark shares his views on how the universe really works based on his study and research of Einstein's unified theory, or field theory. He will discuss how the applications of Einstein's theory can be used to travel through space, renewable energy, and future technology. He will also talk about the connection to conspiracy theories, including UFOs and the alien technology that they use. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. As well as other controversial subjects such as near-death experience revelations that are linked to the theory of super relativity. Now, we're also going to talk a few things tonight about time travel and whether the Star Trek transporter is real or could be real. See, all of this stuff is stuff that just gets me all fired up. Hey, I'm all right, dude. I'm all right. I'm all right.
Feel you over here. Start talking about Star Trek stuff, and things change in the atmosphere.
And the government cover-up of anti-gravity technology. This is right up the alley of abnormal realities. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mark Fiorentino. Mark, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello. Thank you guys for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Fantastic. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, I got to be careful because, we've been having these guests on and my curiosity piques me before the show. And then we start talking about things before the show and we're like, damn it, that's show material.
It is. We got to say it all again.
All over again. I got to tell you, Mark,
people want to hear it.
The absolute, well, that's been proven. Just the responses we've been getting from our listeners in the realm of these conversations. And folks, it's just like we were saying with Mark before the show started, these are the kind of conversations that on a perfect evening, you got a little fire pit going and maybe a good glass of scotch or wine and a good cigar. And
big old stogie.
Yeah. These are the conversations you sit around a fire and talk about for hours.
Yeah.
It's just exploring the mind and the imagination and reality versus what we perceive not to be reality. Sometimes I think what people consider paranormal is actually more normal than normal, but so brother Mark, we do appreciate your time and coming on for the program. Let's just start with this. It's your pretty basic radio show question, but let's start with who's Mark and what brought you into this realm of research and trying to understand the world that we live in.
Well, I believe it's all part of a life plan, and we all execute a life plan. It's a matter of remembering it, and that's the key thing that has to be realized for all people, that we have to try and remember our life plan that was assembled before we were born. So how it started with me, how I got into this whole subject of physics and metaphysics and the philosophy of the nature of things, it really started when I was 10 years old and I was going to catechism class. I'm a Catholic, and going there, and the nuns asked us to find a saint that was born on our birthday. So I went home, and in 1965, there's no such thing as the internet. So you can't really look this thing up anywhere, and going to the library would take forever. How are you going to really?
Were there even encyclopedias back? I mean, I guess there were encyclopedias.
Well, eventually I get to that, but I asked my parents, and they didn't know of any saint born on my birthday. Then I went to the calendar, and I saw on my date, March 14th, Pi Day, Albert Einstein was born.
Interesting.
So I marched over to it gets even more interesting. If you go to the end of the story, it's miraculously interesting. It's bizarre. There's a lot of connections to Albert Einstein. So I go to the encyclopedia and I read about him, and I eventually make my way to the unified field theory. And I says, after I read this at the age of 10, I says, this is the most sensible thing I've ever heard. I know this must be correct, and I want to discover this before I die. So I spent a good part of my life reading about physicists and their stories and their ideas, but nobody could ever really solve this problem, including Einstein, and he was very close. He was just born too soon. If he had been born 50 years later, he would be on this show and have worked it all out, but he was missing some critical information that I was able to obtain just by being born later and finding out about the quarks and how they work inside of the neutron and the proton, which eventually led me to the unified field theory paper that I put on ResearchGate.
Right.
So that's how I got into it. And then as a teenager, I got interested, like you guys, I'm sure, in UFOs. And I said, surely these guys know about the unified field theory because they've mastered anti-gravity. and I looked for clues when I was reading all those books. I studied them over and over for how they are propelled, and I found a link to magnetism, which has been thoroughly suppressed by our government.
Really?
People keep discovering anti-gravity,
Yeah.
keep getting shoved under the rug. Poklanoff and Ling Ni and these people are just they're being silenced one way or another, discredited or whatever.
So, Mark, what you're saying is that there have been people that have gotten results in regards to, let's just say, having an object float with zero gravity
Or propel itself.
There's been quite a few
Or close
throughout history.
Yeah.
They have had limited results. Some had dramatic results, but then again, their research is covered up one way or another. Either they're discredited, or they're threatened, or their work is destroyed, eliminated, covered up. You name it. That's our nation's greatest secret. Anti-gravity technology is a game changer. Once this comes out, once we know about the existence of other worlds, it changes religion. If you don't think that the Pope isn't keeping an eye on, and then the Catholic Church hasn't been watching this for years to make sure how they're going to handle it when it does come out, because all of religion is going to get tweaked quite a bit, because the Bible really doesn't get into covering, aliens and other beings from other worlds.
So, Mark, do you think that the reason that we haven't had, I would guess, complete disclosure or even freaking reasonable disclosure is because of the church?
No, I think my personal opinion is it's all about strategic military advantage. He who has the highest technology controls the skies and controls the world. You control the skies, you control the world, because you can go in and bomb any place at will. If you're the dominant force in the skies, you can win any war.
I said the same thing about weather. If you can control the weather, you can control the planet.
And I have a section in my book about how to modify weather for our advantage. It's called Project Sunshade.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
And that's like what I consider one of my minor ideas.
Project Sunshade.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, you can control the birth of hurricanes. You can notch them down. It's just a matter. You have to have the anti-gravity technology to go into space and build the blinding system. And you block off about 2% of the sunlight coming in. You block it off over Hurricane Alley, and when hurricanes are born coming off Africa, you just push the button, the shades go up, it shades that area, blocks the sunlight, kills the energy coming to the storm, and it never develops into a hurricane, saving who knows how many lives and how much property damage.
Wow.
And at the same time, we can cool the climate using this system. That's just one of the many technological advantages we would have if we could get anti-gravity technology going, because we could send drones into space to assemble this thing 24/7. Wouldn't have to risk people's lives. It could all be done through automation. It's just a matter of the U.S. government and the other governments that already know about this technology admitting it's there, and allowing companies like IBM and General Motors and Hitachi or whoever to start building these spaceships so that we can have this technology, and it will change the world, how we live, how we travel. Imagine being able to go to Tahiti from Florida in less than 5 minutes.
I am all about that.
2 days.
I am seriously.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend 2 days traveling.
No. Yeah. And this is UFOs go 10, 20 something thousand miles per hour in the atmosphere. No problem. If you're going 40 or 50,000, you're going to be there in 5 or 10 minutes. And that's what, I would love to see.
So, Mark, is this all based around the unified field theory? Is that, or super relativity rather?
But what is the
Yes.
unified
Yeah.
field theory?
Can you, in a brief,
Okay.
yeah, and as brief as you can, talk to us about unified field theory or super relativity?
Well, the boys back in the day, Maxwell and Lorentz and Einstein and so forth, Newton, the basic idea comes, I guess, from Einstein. Basically, electromagnetism and gravity emerge as aspects of a single fundamental field. That's it. So all we have to do is figure out, well, what do I mean by a single, what did he mean by a single fundamental field? Well, that's the ether. The ether is outer space, the continuum. Unfortunately, in 1905, the ether was abandoned, and there's a long story behind that. But that's all the unified field theory is, figuring out how electromagnetism relates to gravity. And really what I did in my theory, I broke down I deconstructed it into the electrostatic field, the magnetic field, and the gravitational field. And I showed how each one comes into existence. And when you do that, then you have the unified field theory, because gravity really comes about from the motion of electromagnetic objects within space. And it's basically, it's the accelerated motion of fundamental particles within space causes space to contract in and around the particle. When that contraction happens, mass appears, gravitational field is formed, and it all has to do with the motion of electromagnetic particles, which all particles are. They are electrostatic fields fundamentally, and the electrostatic field is a twist of space. And then when that happens, when that occurs and exists, that structure, there's a pressure gradient that grows along the x-axis. And that pressure gradient causes that particle to move. It's self-caused motion. And that is needed to create the magnetic field. Because as the twist of space, these little tiny particles, vortex theory, as they're moving through space, space spins or rotates around the twisted particle. So that's the magnetic field. Now you're 2/3 of the way to getting the unified field theory. All that was left to do was figure out how those motion of those types of particles, unbalanced charges, creates the gravitational field. And that's what I've done. That's the unified field theory. Just figuring out where these three primary forces come from and how they're related to each other. And it actually turned out to be quite simple. But you had to realize, I had to realize, that the ether does exist.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in modern day science, they think that is nonsense. That's heresy. They actually get angry, a lot of physicists, if you start talking about that. But in the book, I laid it out like a lawyer. There is loads of evidence that proves the ether's existence. And the one experiment that failed to prove the ether existence was deeply flawed. And I demonstrated why and how that is the case.
Have you ever been contacted? Have you ever been contacted by the government, Mark, because of the things that you know?
Boy.
All right. No, you don't even need to answer. We kind of feel it, so you don't even need to say anything.
No. I will answer. I will say no, and I'm glad about that. I'm a little concerned about it. Maybe they're just watching. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a touchy business talking about propulsion using magnetic fields.
It's kind of heartbreaking to hear
and
that.
I have talked to people that have gotten into a lot of trouble.
It's crazy that we're talking about science.
Right. But when you say you've gotten into trouble talking about it, what I mean,
I haven't, but they have.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't talk much about this because I don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
So far, I have encountered no resistance, and gosh,
Mark, just so you know, brother, Mark, just so you know, we know people. You know what I mean? So if there's ever any problems, we know a couple people. We can help you out. Don't worry about it. Hey,
I think I'm getting help, but from a much greater power. That's all I can say. That
Amen.
somehow
Yeah.
I'm being allowed to do this, and I'm going to continue as long as I can, because that's my job.
Yep.
This is my job, going on shows like this to get the word out there. I have to alert the scientific community that the existence of anti-gravity is possible, and it is possible and necessary to break the light speed barrier so that we can get to other star systems.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
we are not safe
Yep.
on Earth.
Let's second segment, because that's going to be a whole stretch.
It is.
I just got one super quick
Yep.
question. When did anti-gravity science come into existence? When did we actually start exploring anti-gravity?
The classic guys didn't, that I know of, Newton or Einstein, and I not much conversation. It really started, I think, when UFOs came into being, 1947,
Yep.
Roswell, and the public became aware that, hey, these things are flying around and they have no wings, no copter thing,
Yep.
no propulsion system that's using propellers or anything, no hot air balloons. This is something they're using some sort of a spatial bias drive. So and then reports came out about the UFOs having high intensity magnetic fields around them. And so for me, it just sort of evolved by reading the books in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s and so forth. And it's really caught on. There's a lot of guys starting, I would say, in the 50s or so that started thinking about it. But for me, the way I got into it was very traditional. After reading about all that stuff, I realized that if gravity exists, there has to be an anti-gravity. Then the trick was figuring out how we could use particle motion to create an anti-gravity field. And then it became obvious that if the aliens are using magnetic fields, and we know this. I mean, they used to send, Project Blue Book. They would send the investigators out with magnometers. Magnometers are devices that measure magnetic fields. They know something. They already know something. They're already sending the people out with those devices. They know they use magnetic fields. In the book, I talk about the first guy, Jessup, who wrote about UFOs in the introduction area, and everywhere on the internet, when he says the Air Force, he's quoting the Air Force, says, "We don't need those damn UFOs. We got our jets, and we don't need to space propulsion," which why they left the M in. I was saying magnetic propulsion.
Yeah.
And that is edited out of his book everywhere on the internet. Who did that? Yeah, that's very deliberate. But they left the letter M in to give a clue. Yeah, it's
Sometimes I wonder if they
really.
Right. I wonder if they do that sometimes, just to kind of allow, I'm just going to use this term, the conspiracy community to kind of grab that bait and they kind of take it and run with it and let them come up with all these theories which make the reality of it look nonsense. I don't know. Sometimes I think they kind of do that as a little mental
It's entirely
game.
possible. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're unless there's some other word it's not magnetically.
Oh, I'm with that.
That you could substitute there.
Yep.
They're leaving a clue in so that people who have some idea or have a better idea, they have a little more confident belief. Definitely a strange situation we're in, because we got the people in quiet.
Yeah. So, Mark, we're having a little bit of
to get over that.
We're having a little bit of internet latency, so it's cutting off the majority of what you've been saying the last couple of sentences there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Let me hook up.
Now, go ahead. We're about to go to a break, so we're gonna
directly to.
Yeah, go ahead and do that, and we're gonna go ahead and go to the break, and then we'll come right back to you. But the stuff that he's talking about, Rocky, so he mentioned it, and I was going to ask about it. He mentioned the spatial bias drive, but in his talking points, it says the slip wave spatial bias drive. And if that's what these alien craft are using, come on, dude. And look, magnetic propulsion has been around for a long time. I mean, you go ride a roller coaster these days.
Yeah.
That's how they're firing you out of that little, area there on a lot of these roller coasters.
I gotta say that I'm here to listen because some of this language is very unfamiliar to me. This is your thing, brother. I mean, you're like a kid right now. Super excited
just
about
like
this.
a kid, dude. I love this kind of stuff. It intrigues me. I probably should have gotten into it like he did at 10 years old, but I didn't. But I think it took a little bit more maturity on my part to try to begin to understand this kind of stuff. But does it not intrigue you to know how these alien craft are bouncing around?
Here's the cool
thing.
And
do we have that capability in the country?
Is when you hear things from this perspective, a science perspective, and these theories and this research that we hear, and then you incorporate the spiritual side, the NDEs and the paranormal stuff and the alien stuff, and these worlds work together.
Yeah.
It comes together. And this is the awesome thing about this last week is that we literally put 5 pieces together of a 7-piece puzzle. So
no joke.
Tanas came up with that. Holy crap. I come up with things at abnormalrealities.com. Castforkids.org. Go show some love and support. Ladies and gentlemen, we love you. Be right back.
2 minutes.
At Romika Designs, we're more than just a laser engraving and specialty design company. Much more. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs, and if you can dream it, we can probably make it. We can custom laser cut and engrave on nearly all material. Great for one-of-a-kind gifts, home decor, business and specialty items, or personalized and logoed designs created just for you or your company. Allow us to become your go-to gift and specialty project partner. Romika Designs can help make your ideas a reality. We're ready to help you design and create that special gift for any occasion or engrave your personal or business logo on just about any product. View our designs at romikadesigns.com or simply email us with your ideas. We specialize in custom design and we'd be honored to have the opportunity to discuss it with you. Call us at 817-400-4040, email info@romikadesigns.com, or visit us on the web at romikadesigns.com.
Abnormal realities.
I watched a documentary the other day. People that were abducted. That's what it was about.
Abductees.
There was a kid, he claimed that he could speak alien. Let me see if I can pick it up. And he was serious, dude. I got chills watching it.
Then what was that sound you were making just now?
I don't know. It was what they did. But I probably said something in alien just now.
Did you call them to come get us? Maybe they can bring us a pizza. Ask them.
Bring us pizza?
Yeah, I don't care what.
Okay, hold on. I got to feel it.
Make sure it has jalapeno on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Just half jalapeno.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to ask aliens to bring me pizza.
Do they deliver it in 30 minutes or less?
It's on the way, or it's free.
Abnormal realities. With Ron and Rocky. 8 p.m. Eastern, Mojo 50.
Welcome back to Abnormal Realities, folks. I'm Ron Phillips. That is Rocky Stucci. What?
I was way offbeat on that one, brother. I didn't even feel it in my soul.
I thought you were going to give me grief because I almost started talking with my mic on mute again, but I caught it.
Yes, you did.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Tonight's guest, ladies and gentlemen, is Mark Fiorentino. This gentleman knows a lot about the unified field theory and how things happen with regard to the alien technology that's out there. And the fact that the government is covering up some of this stuff just floors me. It doesn't surprise me. It just floors me. And, you know, Rocky, we talked about this a while back, but I was in the Air Force at the time that they released the B-2 bomber.
Yep.
And, you know, that was kept secret for years, right? The one that the big wing. Yep. And that was top secret for years. And the F-117 fighter, stealth fighter, I can only imagine what they're working on now that we have no idea about. And I wouldn't surprise me if a lot of the sightings that we get nowadays are military in nature.
I wonder
right?
what Mark thinks about that.
Yeah, we're going to ask Mark about it. We're going to bring Mark Fiorentino back in. Mark, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, looks like a good signal now.
Oh,
so
yeah, look at that. There he is.
Direct connect. Got the Ethernet cable tied right in.
Fantastic. So I want to ask you this question because you made mention of it earlier in the show, and that is the spatial bias drive. And on our talking points, it calls it the slip wave spatial bias drive. Explain what that is?
Well, I discovered this from studying particles, because one of the great questions in physics that everyone's afraid to ask is, how do particles move on their own without any help? They don't have jetpacks on them. They constantly move eternally, forever. Electrons, photons, you name it, they're all in motion. And how is this accomplished? So I had to look inside, do mind experiments like Einstein used to do, and look inside of the particles and imagine a system that would work, that would create a velocity for particles. And eventually I came to the conclusion that the guys early on, like Heaviside and Maxwell and all these guys, were on the right track, which they thought of the vortex model. Parts of basically being convolutions of space, twists.
Right.
And when you do this, if you want to see what happens to space when it's twisted like this, get a piece of silly putty, put it on a comic book strip, lift the picture off, and twist it. Watch what happens to the picture. It stretches. And that's the same thing that happens to space when it's twisted. It stretches and it expands. And there's where the catch is. So you start with a little twist at the beginning, and it becomes more and greater and greater. It stretches more. What happens is, across the x-axis of the particle from front to back, you get a pressure gradient. Pressure is the cause of motion in just about everything that you can ask about. Bubbles rising to the surface is pressure. Airplanes, pressure on the bottom of the wing, pushing up. Less pressure lifting on the top of the wing causes the plane to go up. Compression inside of the engines, like motors, in the pistons, causes the pistons to turn, causes the car to move. Water pressure in the hose causes it. Pressure is the answer. That is where I decided to look for a pressure gradient inside of particles. And with the twisting model, you get a pressure gradient. So now there is, within the medium, the ether, each and every particle has a tiny pressure gradient in it, and this causes it to move. And I have a model in my book where I show the arrows of force and the directions, and you can see that this particle will have a velocity, a motion in a particular direction within the isotropic background of space. The pressure gradient is inside the particle. It won't work outside of the particle, like bubbles always rise in the ocean from the bottom to top, because there's a pressure gradient in the medium. The ocean itself has a high pressure at the bottom, literally pushes the bubble up from the bottom up to the surface because it's less dense. And the same thing is happening in the particle, except the pressure gradient is within the particle. So once that structure is formed, that rotated portion of space, the electrostatic field, that gives birth to motion. And once the particle is now moving through space, as it moves the twist, the space rotates around it, you get the magnetic field. And it's a simple model, it's a sensible model, and from that, that is what I call the slip wave, that pressure gradient field that exists inside of particles. Then I applied that, just like Da Vinci did with figuring out how things fly, and the Wright brothers, by watching the birds. Watch nature. I watched nature. I watched the particles. I saw what's inside of them, and then say, hey, we could duplicate this. We can make a large field gradient using magnetic fields, which, hey, that's perfect. That's a rotation of space, a torsional reaction to moving charge. So now we can do this by surrounding our spaceship with a gradient magnetic field. At the front of the ship, you have a slight, very strong magnetic field, but around the first coil. So if you have a ship that looks like a cigar shape,
Right.
well, now I know why they use cigar shapes. It's by far the easiest geometry to surround with a magnetic field. You put the coils around each, in parallel, one at the front, next one, the next one. Each one has a higher rate of energy going through it, a stronger magnetic field. So now the gradient throws across that ship and propels it forward. Or in any direction. They have steering coils and so forth.
Right.
That's the slip wave. That's a very simple model that, when employed, not only gives gravity shielding effects, but it does other things that are very important so that you don't die when you accelerate. As if we had a jet and it went from 0 to 50,000 miles an hour in less than a second, it would kill the occupants.
Absolutely.
That's a guarantee, because you have
the changes in
direction.
Direction.
If you made a right turn at 50,000, you're dead. Your bones are snapped.
Is it the field, the magnetic field, that keeps that from happening?
The magnetic field, not only you see gravity and inertia are linked. They're really the same thing.
Yeah.
So when you create the anti-gravity field, you cancel inertia within the objects within that ship.
Okay.
They feel nothing.
Yeah.
When they're moving at, 20,000 miles this way and then they go like that, it's like they're floating. They have if you're not looking out the window, you would not be aware that you've changed direction once you're inside the slip wave. And that's very important, because not only does it shield the gravitational effects and the inertial effects, which are vitally important, especially when you approach the speed of light, because then you have the Lorentz transformations to deal with. And if you don't cancel those out by using the magnetic field, then you've got problems with length contraction, mass increase. All these things would kill you at near the speed of light. And so with the slip wave spatial bias field, you are protected from those because you are expanding space in and around the inside of the spaceship.
Yeah.
Plus, you get the bonus. This is beautiful. You get the bonus of using magnetic shielding on the inside of the ship. That you can have two different types: the ones that absorb the lines of force and the ones that repel. And you put that around so that the people don't get subjected to the huge magnetic field.
Wow.
But at the same time, they get the benefit of the inverse hyperbolic field, the anti-gravity field. And so that they become weightless, no inertial effects, no contraction of length as you move toward the speed of light, no increase in mass as you move toward the speed of light. And the key breakthrough is the discovery of this equation that comes from Maxwell, the meaning of this equation and how it's affected by the slip wave spatial bias drive. Speed of light, as determined by James Clerk Maxwell, the speed of light, C, equals 1 over the square root of the permittivity times permeability. Permittivity and permeability are properties of space.
Okay.
If space weren't a real thing, these properties wouldn't exist. They would have values of 0, but they don't. They have measurable properties. And when you reduce these two, you can break the light speed barrier. And the use of the magnetic field does just that. When you crank it up, you thin out space. You change its metric. And the properties of permeability and permeability drop to near 0. When they hit 0, you don't want that, because now your speed goes infinitely fast. If you execute the equation 1 divided by 0, you get infinitely fast, and you don't want to do that. So you just want to tweak it down some so that you can go 1,000 times the speed of light, 10,000,
So
100,000.
I'm a huge Star Trek fan.
Oh God.
Does that mean that we will ever go warp speed in a spacecraft? Is that what
Warp
that's?
speed was limited thinking. 8 times
Oh,
or 9
oh,
times the
wow,
speed of
right?
light.
Come on, Ron, where you at?
Yeah.
Say, hey, that's you can't get anywhere at just 8 times the speed of light. Look, Proxima Centauri
Yeah.
is 4.2 light years away. If we go the speed of light, it takes us 4.2 years one way
Yeah.
to get there. At 9 times the speed of light, it still takes months. That's not usable. That's not
Makes sense,
not
yeah.
a good thing. It's
Unacceptable.
We need 10,000 times the speed. You need to get there in like 15 minutes because it's dangerous going beyond the speed of light. If the warp field drops while you're beyond the speed of light, everything and everyone in that ship is instantly dead. That
Wow.
can't happen. You have to have built-in redundant systems, automatic checking of the current going through the coils. At no time can you drop the coil current while at light speed or above. So you need to get where you're going quickly to be safe. Because if you don't, in mid-flight, that happens. You compress to a flat pancake, your mass goes to near infinity, you become a black hole, basically.
Oh, I don't want to be a
and-
black
and-
hole
no.
at all. I don't.
No, but
Yeah.
so
That's
okay.
it.
So another thing, and I'm sorry, I've got all these
Take
questions.
the
dude.
wheel, brother.
So being able to move that fast, is time travel possible?
I was thinking the same thing.
Time dilation is defeated using this method. You're going to be surprised by what happs
What?
to time and for the people
okay.
inside of the ship.
Oh boy.
Okay.
Normally, if you run the Lorentz transformation for time dilation, as you approach the speed of light, time slows down
Slows down. Yeah.
in your ship
Yeah.
and stops. But it's not really time that's slowing down. It's the clocks that measure time.
Oh,
Now, I can go through the whole twin paradox and can convince you to show you that time itself cannot be affected by the motion, only the things that measure time. So your clocks, all your particles in your body will slow down because they're all being accelerated in this forward direction, and the Lorentz transformations are occurring and physically changing the motion of your particles. The motion's in the clock. The clock now starts to tick slower until it stops at the speed of light. When you're in the slip wave, the clock actually goes slightly faster than normal, very slight. It's as if you were motionless in space. According to what your atoms and everything inside of your body and in the ship experience, is that everything is running a slightly faster than the speed of light. And so the clock actually will run. And Lorentz tried to tell Einstein about this and others. He says, if you want to know your motion in space, he who has the clock that's running fastest is the one who's motionless relative to the absolute stationary background of space. So this is what's going to happen. So you're not going to time travel using this method of speed through space.
Right.
You have to build a Stargate.
Stargate.
Yeah, and you see, because all of time is happening at once. It's all
Yeah, you mentioned that before the show. Let's go into that
Yes.
just for a second. Explain how all of time is happening, and kind of move that into what's the discussion we had about
NDEs.
NDEs. Yeah, and the relative.
Well, here, I've heard this from many NDEs. I have on my website a quote, NDE explanation.
NDE
from
for our
Father-
listeners who don't know, near-death experience. Yeah.
This is a great source of information about reality. If you want to really know what's going on, you have to look at the big picture, and you'll get the big picture from looking at NDEs. So from Father Rick Wendell, he says, God, and this is coming from God, so you
Yeah.
want to really pay attention to what's being said right now. One commandment for man, love one another. All of this three-dimensional world is within God. There is nothing outside of God. Everything within this physical universe has to correspond to laws, and God set those laws. They are immutable as God is immutable. None of this, what we see and experience, is an accident. It is intentioned by God. Time does not really exist. God is outside of time, and so is everyone in the afterlife. We have a perception of time in the physical world. That perception changes according to our circumstances, how fast we're moving relative to space. If space didn't exist physically, we would have no time. Only because space is a real physical object, time emerges in something that we can experience in this realm as long as we're alive. It's real enough here, but overall, you can't really punch a dent into time. The point is, on the other side, when you're outside of time, you can look at time as this one big eternal ball, and it's all happening at once. And if you can go to this part or that part, and you use a portal, if you're in this realm and you want to access another area of time in the future or in the past, you have to open a portal, and that's what a Stargate does. Project Looking Glass, some of these things. This is what they do in order to try to mess with things, and I'm very much against that, especially going back in time and trying to change things that have already happened. This is a bad idea. It's a bad idea to try to control the future, and I understand that they actually are having problems since the year 2012, according to an insider, a leaker of information.
Okay, wait a second. Time out for a second. Who is they, and what are they having problems with? Time travel?
Yeah. Our guys are the elite class or whatever they're called. I'm just going by what this person said. I watched a video on the internet, and because I'm interested in Stargate technology, and as I worked it out in my book, how to build one, I'm curious about what the government's doing. I don't want them messing with. I was hoping it was impossible, but then, especially going back in time, and I was sorely disappointed when I realized that you can do it. And now I know, well, immediately, how are they going to mess that up? Because they're going to try to. And so, I got some tips on things to research from mediums and such, and the tips turned out right. The information I got led me to the discovery of something called metamaterials. Do you know what metamaterials
I do not.
Left-handed material. Well, they're a material that material scientists have discovered and built that adjusts the permittivity and permeability. Here we are back with Maxwell again. If you mess with those two things in that material, you can change the speed of light within that material. And they're claiming that they've dropped permittivity and permeability to zero inside of this material. And that light goes infinitely. They're claiming it, not me. They're claiming it that it goes infinitely fast inside when they run tests on it. So, well, this is, when I wrote the chapter on Stargates, I says, the only way this can be done is you're going to have to accelerate particles beyond the speed of light inside the framework, and you need a metamaterial. Basically, it's called there's a name for this. It's a lens, fractal lens that they use. And it's lined around the framework of the Stargate, at least in mine it is. You shine the light beams in there, and this compresses this frequency of light to enormous high levels of trillions of hertz. So when that light comes out of the frame, it makes space vibrate at exceedingly high frequencies. And if you use it in conjunction with laser light and sound, high frequency sounds, you can cause a portal to open up into another dimension or another universe or another time. It depends on what frequency, what kind of complex waveforms they use, so forth, which is beyond what I know. I'm not working with those physicists that have worked all that out. But if you want to jump from one time to another, that's the way that it can be done. And
I just had a horrifying thought. I did. A horrifying thought. And here's what it is. This'll blow your mind. If people have, we will never know if people have gone back in time without knowing that they're time traveling and changed anything in the past. You know why we'll never know that?
Because we'll never know.
We'll never know because all of a sudden that just won't be in there anymore.
We could think what we know was part of history.
If let's say they go back and they stop the Twin Towers bombing.
Yep.
All of a sudden, we just don't remember.
Everything changes.
It's not a matter of remembering. It was never there,
It
right?
never happened. It never happened to be remembered. Except for people.
So we will never know it.
Well, now there's the Mandela Effect.
Yeah.
We see that all the time. Yeah. We talked about it 2 weeks ago.
That there's changes going on, little subtle changes here and there, that they remembered it this way and now it's this way. And
but even
that could
then
happen.
But even then, how would they remember it another way?
It's not that they remember it, but they think they remember it differently.
But why? Why do they think they remember it differently if something changed in the past? Oh my gosh.
So it's
a whole nother show. It's a whole nother show.
When you start messing with time and infinity and an eternity, it gets very heavy on the mind and it causes you to do circular thoughts, circular logic.
Let's let him talk about his books real quick.
Yep.
Because we've got about 2.5 minutes, Mark. Talk about your book real quick, or your books, and where people can find you and read more about it.
Okay, well, you can go to my site, www.super-relativity.com, and I have links right on the front page. You can either buy it on Amazon, or I can send you a signed copy.
Yep, that'd be great.
My place. A lot of people like that, and I send them out, and that's the two places you can buy the book right now, on Amazon and my website. And there's also links to my research papers that prove the unified field theory and provide the solution for the origin of mass, gravity, and inertia. That was necessary to complete Einstein's dream, which I made a commitment to try and do or discover before I died. And that's vitally important for scientists to read that. I realize the paper is quite large. It's like 50 pages long. But the first paper sets up the second paper.
Gotcha.
First paper, I discovered the speed of quarks. And then in the second paper, I used that number to solve for the masses of particles. So that's where you can get my book and so forth on the website. And I have a YouTube channel where I have some of my videos. Maybe this video will be on there someday.
Fantastic.
If you want to.
Rocky, did you have a question before we get out?
No, because it's deep and it's going to take long. But I just, hey, Mark, we'll get you back on the show again. Two things I'll make sure.
Definitely.
I mean, I need to prepare my mind for the next conversation. But I was going to ask you, and we'll carry this to the next time, in regards to the aging process of the human body through any of this. And I think that's a...
Yeah.
Good
So
question.
we'll save that to the next show. Mark, listen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Mark Fiorentino. Folks, go out to super-relativity.com. Find all the information there. Mark, hang with us. We'll be right back with you, okay?
Okay.
All right. Fantastic. What a freaking show.
I swear my IQ went up this week.
Oh, no, I was so focused on what he was saying. I'm like, oh my God, look at the time.
I could feel you next to me, that whole conversation.
I felt like I just got educated 4 years worth of freaking astrophysics in a night.
I love these conversations.
I love it. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, Abnormal Realities is where you can find us, abnormalrealities.com. You can go check out the other shows on OdysyRadio.com. Yep. We do have some new shows out there and new shows coming all the time. Rocky Stucci.
OdysyRadio.com. Get on over there. Listen to the stream. You can download it on your Apple or Android phone. You can go to iHeartRadio.com, search Odyssey Radio, but make sure you get on over to our website, listen to the podcast, download the shows. We love you guys. GrowMakeItDesigns.com, InsaneCustomTumblers.com, and of course our brothers and sisters at CastForKids.org. We love you guys. Have a fantastic week, and until next week, Phillips.
See ya.